Hi everyone, my name is Callie and I'm a junior in the dietetics program here at UND, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a veggie-packed chicken stir fry. This recipe is great because it's super easy and only takes about 20 minutes to prepare. It's going to give you a total of 4 servings, costing $2.68 per serving. So let's make chicken stir fry. For this recipe, you will need 1 pound of boneless, skinless chicken breast, some salt and pepper to taste, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 cups of broccoli florets, half of a red bell pepper and half of a yellow bell pepper. I will be using 3 smaller bell peppers today, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. For our stir fry sauce, you will need 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of cold water, 1/4 cup of low sodium chicken broth, 3 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce, 1/4 cup of honey, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper or crushed red pepper, whichever you prefer. When working with food, it's super important to wash your hands frequently before you begin, as well as throughout the prepping and cooking process. This will help to prevent the spread of any disease or any cross-contamination. The CDC recommends that you wash your hands for a minimum of 20 seconds using warm, soapy water, making sure to get around your wrists, on the backs and palms of your hands, as well as around your nail beds and underneath your nails. Now that my hands are all clean, I'm going to start by taking my medium bowl and whisking together my 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and 2 tablespoons of water. It should look something like this. I'm now going to add the rest of my ingredients, which is 1/4 cup of low sodium chicken broth. When buying any canned goods like chicken broth or soy sauce, anything like that, you want to look for low sodium, as this will help to reduce your sodium intake. I'm going to add my 1/4 cup of honey. Next, we'll add our 3 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. And 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. And lastly, we will add our 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I'm going to whisk that all together. And that is our stir fry sauce, and we're going to set that aside for later. Next, we're going to prepare our vegetables. I have already washed my vegetables, but before you start preparing or cutting your vegetables up, make sure to wash them under cold running water, just to make sure to get any of the germs or dirt off of the outsides. Now I'm going to cut my bell pepper. I like to start by cutting a circle around the stem with a small paring knife. You should be able to just pull that out, and I'll have a majority of the seeds there attached to the stem. Next, I like to cut the bottom off of the bell pepper and then cut it in half. You want to remove any of these white fibrous parts, as those parts are going to be more bitter. So I am just going to do that by using my paring knife and gliding it along there. When shopping for bell peppers, you want to look for a firm and glossy outside and avoid any that have any wrinkles or soft spots in them. Next, I'm going to slice my bell pepper, trying to get the slices as evenly as I can, as this is going to make sure that they cook evenly. Bell peppers, like most vegetables, have a lot of fiber, which is good for your digestive system. They are also rich in vitamin A and vitamin C and potassium. If you would like to refrigerate your bell peppers, you can put them in the fridge unwashed and dry for 4 to 5 days. If you wash your bell peppers before putting them in the fridge, they will spoil a little faster. Next, we're going to prepare our broccoli. So when you're shopping for broccoli, you want to look for broccoli with nice tight florets and no yellowing. It should feel heavier than it looks. And you also want to look at the end of the stalk and make sure that it's not dry and it looks moist and fresh. So to begin preparing our broccoli, we're going to hold the stem facing up, and we're just gonna start removing the florets, leaving about 1 inch of stem on them. Now I'm gonna go through and take the bigger pieces and just cut them up a little bit. If you have some real big pieces, you can also cut up the stalk and then pull it apart, and that will help make them a little smaller. Broccoli is a good source of fiber, as well as iron, calcium, potassium, and it actually, in 1 cup of broccoli, has the same amount of vitamin C as an orange. When you store broccoli, you want to get rid of the plastic bag that you brought it home from the store in, and take a moist paper towel, wrap it around the broccoli, and place that in the fridge. You do not want to wash your broccoli before putting it in the fridge, as too much moisture is going to encourage mold growth. So instead, you just want to wash it thoroughly right before you use it. If you store it whole before cutting it up, it will last 3 to 5 days in the fridge. Raw chopped broccoli, however, is only going to last about 2 days, so you want to make sure to eat it up after you cut it up and wash it. Now our vegetables are all prepped. You can also substitute a bag of frozen vegetables if you have them in the freezer, or if you're just looking to save some time. They also can be more cost efficient. However, the fresh vegetables are going to taste. Now we're going to prepare our chicken. Notice how I'm using a separate cutting board and knife for my chicken than I did for our vegetables. It's important to use separate utensils and cutting boards for raw meats versus ready-to-eat foods, as this will prevent any spread of cross-contamination. Raw meats, and chicken especially, contains salmonella, which is a bacteria that we do not want getting on our fresh vegetables. If you do not have a separate cutting board and knife, make sure to wash them thoroughly with soap and hot water between uses. It's also a good idea to do your chicken or raw meats last and your ready-to-eat foods first, so that way you aren't contaminating any of your ready-to-eat foods. You also never want to wash raw meats or poultry, as when you're washing them, you can splash any of those juices and bacteria anywhere in the kitchen, and you don't want to do that, so it's best to just not wash them. You can stop the spread of any salmonella from your raw chicken by washing your hands frequently and using separate cooking utensils. When you're buying chicken, you want to look for a nice pink color. You want to avoid any chicken with any bruising or tears in the skin, as this can affect the quality or the freshness of the chicken. You also want to avoid any packaging with lots of liquid in them, as that can dilute the flavor and also make the texture a little soggy. Now I'm going to start cutting my chicken into 1-inch cubes. These do not have to be perfect, but try to make all your pieces as close to the same size as you can, as this will help them to cook evenly. Raw chicken should only be stored in the fridge for 1 to 2 days before freezing or cooking it. Make sure you always store your chicken or raw meats on the bottom shelf, as this will prevent any dripping or anything like that happening on your ready-to-eat foods. So make sure to store it on the bottom shelf and your ready-to-eat foods on the top shelf of your fridge. If you choose to freeze your chicken, it will stay good in the freezer for 9 months to a year. Chicken is considered a lean protein, which means it contains less fat. The recommended portion size for chicken is 3 ounces, which is about the size of the palm of your hand or a deck of cards. 3 ounces of chicken gives you 23 grams of protein. My plate recommends that you eat 5.5 ounces of protein a day. You can also make this recipe without the chicken if you choose to. Now that I washed my hands after preparing our chicken, I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of olive oil to my pan. I have the pan set at medium heat, and I'm going to add our cubed chicken to the fry pan, and I'm going to let that cook for 3 to 5 minutes. You want to fry your chicken until it loses all of its pink color. The internal temperature should reach 165 degrees to ensure that the harmful bacteria that causes any food poisoning has been killed. You can use a meat thermometer to check the temperature of a few of the larger chunks in your pan, as those are going to take the longest to cook. If you do not have a meat thermometer, you can also tell the chicken is done if it's kind of more fibrous and it pulls apart easily. Cooked chicken can be stored in the fridge for 3 to 4 days. After opening new olive oil, you want to store it in a dark, cool place like a kitchen cupboard away from the stove, keeping it out of any sunlight. Olive oil is usually good for up to 2 years stored this way. Olive oil is made up of mostly heart-healthy monounsaturated fats with a small amount of polyunsaturated fat and saturated fat. A plus of using olive oil while cooking, especially with vegetables, is that this fat helps your body to absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. Now that I've checked a few chunks of my chicken and they have all reached 165 degrees, I'm going to remove the chicken from my pan onto a small plate for now. I'm going to reduce the heat a little bit. And I'm going to add about 1 more tablespoon of olive oil to my pan. And then I'm going to pour in my broccoli and my peppers. Now I'm going to cook these vegetables until they're crisp tender, and I'm going to be sure to stir them occasionally to make sure that none of them are burning on the bottom of the pan. Now that my vegetables are about done, I'm going to add my 1 teaspoon of ground ginger and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder to the vegetables and let that cook for 1 more minute. Now I'm going to add my chicken back into my pan with my vegetables and stir them together. And I'm going to take my sauce that we made at the beginning of the video whisk it together a bit as it's been sitting, and then add that into my pan. Now I'm going to stir this together and let this come to a boil, and let that boil for 1 minute. And now our chicken stir fry is all ready. You can choose to serve this over rice or chow mein, whichever you prefer. This recipe makes a total of 4 servings, and it is 332 calories per serving. Will provide you with 29 grams of carbohydrates, 26 grams of protein, and 13 grams of fat.